I destroyed my boss's career with 3 simple words. I need approval, and it cost my company nearly $1 million. This is the story of how my micromanaging nightmare of a director learned that some rules should never be enforced. By the end of this, he was begging me to break company policy. Executives were having emergency meetings about me, and I walked away with the biggest paycheck of my life. But let me start from the beginning, because the setup makes the revenge so much sweeter. Picture this. You're working at your dream job. Great team, good pay, flexible hours. Life is perfect. Then corporate decides to bring in a productivity expert. To shake things up, meet Marcus Kellerman. 6'2", designer suits, and an ego bigger than his corner office. This man didn't just micromanage. He turned control into an art form. Within his first week, he transformed our laid-back tech team into something that felt like a military boot camp. First came the meetings. Our 15-minute daily stand-ups became 2-hour interrogation sessions. Marcus would grill each person like they were on trial. Why did this task take you 3 hours instead of 2? What's your plan for the next 30 minutes? Who approved you taking that bathroom break? I wish I was exaggerating. Then came the forms. Marcus introduced prior written approval for everything. And I mean everything. Want to grab coffee? Fill out Form 27B. Need to use the bathroom? Log out of all systems and document your expected return time. Working from home because your kid is sick? 3 forms, 2 supervisor signatures, and a doctor's note. But here's where it gets really insane. He started tracking our departure times. See, our company had flexible hours. Always had. As long as you hit your deadlines and worked your 40 hours, nobody cared if you came in at 7 a.m. or 10 a.m. It was one of the perks that made the job great. Marcus changed that real quick. He positioned himself by the elevators at 5:30 p.m. sharp, watching who left. Anyone leaving early got a snide comment. Half day today, Sarah. He'd say to someone who'd been there since 7 a.m., leaving early again, Mike? To someone staying until 6 p.m., the man was obsessed with control. And that obsession was about to cost him everything. 3 months into Marcus's reign of terror, disaster struck. Our mobile app had a critical bug that was destroying the company's reputation. Every time someone tried to make a purchase over $100, the app would crash. Worse, sometimes it would charge them twice. Customer service was in meltdown mode. Social media was roasting us. The executives were having daily crisis meetings. This wasn't just a bug. It was a company-threatening emergency. Guess who got assigned to fix it? That's right, yours truly. I threw my entire life at this problem. 14-hour days, working weekends, surviving on energy drinks and whatever I could grab from the break room vending machine. My girlfriend was pissed. My apartment looked like a disaster zone, and I hadn't seen sunlight in days. But I'm good at what I do. Really good. After 72 hours of nonstop debugging, I found it. The issue was buried deep in our payment processing system, a race condition that only happened under very specific circumstances. It was the kind of bug that gives senior engineers nightmares. I fixed it, tested it, and deployed the solution to our staging environment. The bug was dead. I just saved the company millions and lost revenue and customer trust. It was Tuesday, 7:15 p.m. I'd been at my desk since 8 a.m. that morning, 11 hours straight. My eyes felt like sandpaper. My back was screaming, and all I wanted was to go home and sleep for a week. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. Instead of just leaving like any sane person would do, I decided to be professional. I walked over to Marcus's office to let him know the crisis was resolved and that I was heading home. Big mistake. The trap is set. Marcus looked up from his computer with that smug expression I'd grown to hate. His office was pristine, not a paper out of place. His expensive pen set perfectly aligned on his desk. I just fixed the payment bug. I said, exhaustion weighing down every word. It's deployed to staging. QA will verify tomorrow, but the crisis is over. I'm heading home. Marcus glanced at his watch with theatrical precision. Did you submit a request to leave early? I blinked. Hard. Leave early? Marcus, it's after 7 p.m. I've been here for 11 hours. The official workday is 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., he said, leaning back in his chair like he was delivering a masterpiece of logic. You arrived at 8 a.m., so your workday ended at 5:30. It's now 7:15. You're requesting to leave 1 hour and 45 minutes early. The words hit me like a slap. This man, this absolute waste of oxygen, was telling me I needed permission to leave after an 11-hour day spent saving the company's reputation. But I worked through lunch. I protested, feeling my blood pressure rising. I haven't taken a break all day. I just fixed the most critical bug we've had in years. That's your choice, Marcus interrupted, clicking his precious pen. Company policy is clear. If you want to leave before your scheduled end time, you need prior written approval. Submit the request, and I'll review it. Something snapped inside me. Not anger. Something colder. More calculating. What if I don't get approval? I asked quietly. Marcus smiled. Actually smiled. Then you stay until 5:30 tomorrow. Company policy. That's when I realized something beautiful. Marcus had just handed me the most powerful weapon in the world. His own stupid rules. Okay, I said, my voice deadly calm. I understand. So to be clear, I need written approval from you to leave work, no matter how many hours I've worked or what I've accomplished. Exactly. I'm glad you're finally getting it. And if I don't have approval, I have to stay until my scheduled end time the next day? Correct. Got it. I'll submit the request right now. I walked back to my desk and opened the company's request portal. Under reason for early departure, I wrote, requesting permission to leave at 7:15 p.m. after working 11 hours to resolve critical payment processing bug that was costing company estimated $50,000 per hour in lost revenue. I hit submit and waited. 20 minutes later, the response came back. Request denied. Insufficient advance notice. Policy requires 24-hour advance notice for early departure requests. I read that email 3 times, and each time I smiled a little wider. Marcus had just made the most expensive mistake in corporate history. I walked back to his office. He was packing up his briefcase, getting ready to leave for the day. My request was denied. I said, well, maybe next time you'll plan better, Marcus replied without looking up. So I have to stay until 5:30 tomorrow? That's right. And if I want to leave at 5:30 tomorrow, I need approval for that too, right? Marcus finally looked at me, and I could see a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. Well, I suppose technically yes. But since I need 24-hour advance notice, and it's now almost 8 p.m., I can't submit a request to leave at 5:30 tomorrow until 5:30 today, which is already passed. The color started draining from Marcus's face. So I'll need to stay until 5:30 Thursday. But to leave at 5:30 Thursday, I'd need to submit a request by 5:30 Wednesday, which I can't do because I'll still be at work. So I'll need to stay until 5:30 Friday. Marcus was staring at me now, his briefcase forgotten, but the same logic applies to Friday and the weekend and next week. I paused for effect. According to your policy, I literally can't leave work until you approve a request, but I can't submit a valid request because I'm always less than 24 hours away from when I want to leave. The silence in that office was deafening. The beautiful disaster unfolds. Now wait just a minute, Marcus stammered. That's not, you can't just... I'm just following company policy. I said innocently. Your policy, the one you just enforced. Marcus's face went through about 6 different shades of red. Be reasonable here. Obviously, you can go home tonight. But you denied my request. Are you telling me to violate company policy? I'm telling you to use common sense. I am. The policy says I need approval to leave early. I don't have approval, so I'm staying. And that's exactly what I did. I went back to my desk, ordered dinner to be delivered to the office, and kept working. Marcus left around 8:30, shooting nervous glances at me the entire time. When security asked me at 10 p.m. why I was still there, I explained the situation. They thought it was hilarious and told me they'd make sure I had access to the building all night. I worked until 6 a.m., took a shower in the executive gym, and kept going. Wednesday came and went, then Thursday. By Friday, word had spread throughout the entire office. People were coming by my desk just to see the madman who was living at work to prove a point. The facilities team set up a cot for me. HR was having daily meetings about my situation. The other engineers were taking bets on how long I'd last. But here's the beautiful part. I wasn't just sitting there doing nothing. I was working, coding, debugging, optimizing systems. And every single hour I worked was overtime. Time and a half for the first 8 hours, over 40 per week. Double time for anything over 60 hours. And since I was now working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I was racking up overtime at a rate that was making the payroll department physically nauseous. By the end of the second week, my story had reached the C-suite. The CEO himself came down to see the engineer who was living at the office. "Son," he said, looking genuinely bewildered, "why don't you just go home?" "I'd love to, sir, but Marcus denied my request to leave early, and company policy states I need approval for any departure before my scheduled end time." "But you're scheduled to work 8 to 5:30. It's midnight." "Yes, sir. But since I leave at 5:30 on Tuesday when my request is denied, my workday technically carried over to Wednesday. When I couldn't get approval to leave Wednesday, it carried over to Thursday. The policy has created a loop." The CEO stared at me for a long moment. Then he started laughing. Actually laughing. "Marcus did this?" "Yes, sir. I have all the emails documented." That's when I knew Marcus was finished. The confrontation. The next morning, I was called into a conference room. Marcus was there, looking like he hadn't slept in days. So it was the CEO, the head of HR, and our legal department. "Explain to me how this happened," the CEO said to Marcus. Marcus tried to spin it. He talked about accountability and proper procedures and maintaining discipline. But when they pulled up the email trail, the truth was undeniable. He had denied a completely reasonable request for someone to go home after an 11-hour day. He had enforced a policy so rigidly that it created an impossible situation, and his stubborn refusal to fix it had cost the company a fortune. "Do you know how much we paid this man in the last 2 weeks?" the CEO asked Marcus. Marcus shook his head weakly. $47,000. In 2 weeks. That's more than most people make in a year. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was what happened next. See, Marcus's approval policy didn't just affect me. It affected everyone. And when word spread about my situation, other employees started following the policy to the letter too. Sarah from accounting needed approval to leave for her kid's soccer game. When Marcus delayed responding, she stayed late and collected overtime. Mike from marketing needed approval to leave for a doctor's appointment. When the approval got stuck in bureaucracy, he missed the appointment and billed the company for his wasted time. The entire department ground to a halt as people waited for approval for the most basic activities. But I was still the main event. By the end of my 3rd week living at the office, I had worked 504 hours. 504 hours. That's more than 12 full-time weeks of work, compressed into 3 weeks. The overtime payments were astronomical. But that wasn't even the craziest part. The craziest part was that I was being insanely productive, without the distractions of commuting, meal prep, or household chores. I was coding like a machine. I finished 3 major projects that were supposed to take months. I optimized systems that had been running slowly for years. I documented processes that had never been properly recorded. The company was getting incredible value for their money, which somehow made the whole situation even more absurd. The final confrontation. 3 weeks and 2 days after this whole mess started, Marcus finally broke. It was a Tuesday morning, exactly 3 weeks since he denied my original request. I was at my desk, where I'd been for 526 straight hours, when he came storming over. "This is insane," he shouted, loud enough for half the office to hear. "You can't live here forever." "I don't want to live here," I replied calmly, not looking up from my screen. "I want to go home." I want to go home for 3 weeks, then just leave. I need approval to leave early. Fine. You have approval. Leave. I finally looked at him. I need it in writing. Company policy. Marcus looked like he was about to have a stroke. You're being ridiculous. I'm being compliant. That's when he said the words that sealed his fate. Forget company policy. I'm ordering you to go home. The entire office went silent. Marcus, the man who had built his entire management philosophy around rigid adherence to rules, had just told an employee to ignore company policy in front of witnesses. Are you asking me to violate company policy? I asked loudly enough for everyone to hear. Marcus realized his mistake immediately. His face went white. I know. Because I have documentation showing that you consistently enforce this policy. If you're now telling me to ignore it, I'll need that instruction in writing with an explanation of why this policy should be ignored. Marcus turned and walked away without another word. 2 hours later, I got an email from HR with written approval to adjust my schedule as needed for work-life balance. It was signed by the CEO himself. I packed up my things, said goodbye to my coworkers, and walked out of that building after spending 528 hours inside it. The aftermath. The next day, Marcus was placed on administrative leave, pending a review of his management practices. The day after that, I received my paycheck, $847,000 for 3 weeks of work. The overtime calculations were mind-boggling. For 188 hours of overtime, most of it at double-time rates. But the money wasn't even the best part. The best part was a company-wide memo that went out the following Monday, announcing a complete overhaul of the approval process. The new policy was simple. Employees are trusted to manage their own schedules in accordance with business needs and common sense. Marcus was quietly transferred to a special projects role with no direct reports. I heard through the grapevine that his new job involved updating software documentation, alone in a windowless office with no one to micromanage. As for me, I took a month off, with proper approval of course, and came back refreshed. My stunt had made me something of a legend around the office. People still reference the Great Overtime Rebellion in meetings. And you know what the funniest part is? That payment processing bug I fixed on day one, it never came back. My 3 weeks of continuous work had resulted in the most stable, well-documented, and optimized code base our department had ever seen. Sometimes the best way to fight a broken system is to follow it perfectly. Marcus wanted control. I gave him control. He wanted rigid adherence to policy. I gave him rigid adherence to policy. He just never considered what would happen when someone followed his rules better than he did. The last I heard, Marcus was working for a small startup somewhere, telling people about his innovative management techniques. I wonder if he still believes in prior written approval for everything. As for me, I learned something valuable. Sometimes the most powerful act of rebellion is perfect compliance. And sometimes the best revenge is letting someone hang themselves with their own rope. That rope just happened to cost $847,000. Update: a lot of people are asking if this really happened. Yes, it did. I still have the paycheck stub framed in my office. And before you ask, yes, I paid taxes on all of it. Uncle Sam got his cut of my malicious compliance too.